Good morning and welcome to everyone joining us this morning in Zoom and also on the various social media platforms. Thank you for investing the time to learn a little bit more about our background screening services. And this morning we have a very special guest who is going to take us through what all of this means. What does it mean to your organization? Why is this so important that you understand the services that are provided? And as well, how will it really allow your organization to be much more efficient? And if I can ask the technical team to allow me to be able to share my screen so I can get that started. All right, very good. I'm getting that up. And just to get you a little bit acquainted with Action Invest, we have been operating in Guyana since 2014. We own numerous franchises focused mainly on the education field. So we are involved in business coaching, business training. We do quite a lot of psychometric testing that allows for organizations to know if portions are really meeting their requirements within the organization. And we are really focused on being that solution in the Caribbean because we do serve quite a lot of Caribbean countries and more so in Guyana to really bring those growth-oriented services. And what has happened is that as we continue to provide services to the market here in Guyana, we are realizing that there are certain gaps in the market that need to be filled. And through quite a bit of due diligence, we have actually come across Avvanz, which is a company that is located in Singapore. And today, and I'll have Mr. Kannan Chettiar come on to the screen now. He is an award-winning technopreneur. He's a global leader with 24 years of experience in the technology and human capital sectors, and spanning not just Asia, but also the Americas. And he is the managing director of Avvanz. And Avvanz is an award-winning HR tech and fintech company that really prides itself on three pillars: to screen, to onboard, and to develop. And to tell you a lot more about that is the managing director, of course, Kannan. Kannan, welcome to the stream this morning, and thank you very much for allowing Action Invest to be your partner here in the Caribbean so that we can really bring the services that you're going to talk about today to the market and help our organizations be a lot more effective. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu. So let me share my screen.
Very good.
Well, thanks again for having us. Extremely excited to partner Dr. Vishnu's ACI in the Caribbean region. So before I talk a little bit more on what we do and how we can add value to your business in areas of HR, let me just quickly talk through myself as well. I think it's always good to know who's the speaker. So born, bred, based in Singapore, but I've leaked out of Canada, US, and Poland across my lifetime. Mostly, as you can see, technology companies in various commercial leadership positions until 2016, April. The technopreneurial bug caught me, and then I started the company. Today, we have, I'm proud to say that we have evolved into HR tech, fintech, as well as training solutions, not just across Asia, across Europe, across North America as well, African continent, and now we're super excited to get into the Caribbean, the exotic Caribbean region as well. So really, really excited. It's not difficult to miss me. You can always Google my name and you'd see I do speak about HR, speak about people, leadership, digital transformation, a very heavily abused word in my opinion, but we actually do a lot of digital transformation consulting as well. So that you can actually see several press coverages across the globe where I've shared what I know and my best practices and experiences gained in working with companies around the world. But again, the next less than an hour or so would not be enough to share whatever I know, but I do hope I can address or talk through some of the common challenges a lot of the companies in your region could be facing as well. Yeah, so that's a bit more on Avvanz. We are probably the only fintech certified background screening company globally, I think. Yeah, and we also have government approvals to run training programs in certain countries as well. But of course, we do a lot of non-government grant fundable training programs everywhere, right? And very quickly to talk through the company, and I think this is the only slide I'm going to talk about the company. After this, I'm just going to talk about common challenges that could be faced by yourselves or by your companies or your clients, and what you can do, right? So we have three business pillars. The first one is the screen pillar, where we help companies do background checking to make sure that safe people join the company, right? To make sure that people who have become part of the organization are of the highest level of integrity and security. We also, as a tech company, we obviously use a lot of automation to do this. And we also have AI tools to help you with recruitment, whereby you can vet resumes in minutes, rank, do chatbot, video bot to help you with the interviewing and all that. And then onboarding your new employees once they've been screened. You also can use technology to onboard new joiners so that they can get on track with the company's vision, mission, core values very quickly and get productive to the floor, to the business really fast. And then, of course, the training and development pillar, which is, I guess, is an area probably very familiar for you guys. But again, our focus is a lot on the digital transformation. Again, this year, COVID-19 probably acted as a catalyst for a lot of businesses who were stubborn not to digitally transform, but it sort of made them expedite the efforts to digitally transform the businesses, right? So again, the focus of this webinar is going to be mainly on the screen pillar. So I'm going to be talking more about that, and onboard and develop, of course, we can talk about it in future webinars. So we have more than 1,000 clients. I think it's more than 1,004 right now. So the slides need to be updated. We work with companies across many industries, and we help all kinds of functions in companies to help them with people-related challenges. Right. So in any business, people are the core, and you need to make sure you get the right people on board. In terms of global presence, again, now we have the Caribbean thanks to our new partnership. But this is all the presence we've got globally right now. So before we talk about what we do here, right? We need to think about when you bring on anyone into the company, you need to question, is he the right person? Is he the right fit for the company, right? A lot of companies, when they bring in wrongful hires, end up with a lot of challenges. And I'm going to show you some high-profile examples. And you also need to make sure whether he or she is safe to hire, right? Again, I'll show examples, maybe not to scare you on the beginning of your day, those sitting on the US or the Caribbean region. But it's a reality, it's a real problem, and I'm going to talk through that. And then once hired, make sure they get running to start contributing to the business with a tight onboarding program. And then make sure caught the very old movie, Catch Me If You Can, right? In the movie, DiCaprio would be changing jobs, lawyer, doctor, sailor, pilot, a lot of very important critical jobs. And he manages to do that in the movie because he just doesn't get background checked. So the real DiCaprio is Frank Abagnale, the guy's showing at the bottom of the screen. Maybe let me just put on my little annotate button so that maybe I can show you something. Yeah, okay. And you could see he was able to do that because all the company decided not to do a thorough background check on his profile, right? So you could be faking a profile, like the very high-profile examples like Yahoo and Samsonite. These guys were caught padding up their resumes. And in fact, in Yahoo, when this happened, the stock prices were obviously impacted as well. There are a lot of examples. You can go to the Google and put there wrongful hires, risks of not background checking, risks of hiring wrong people, And companies' reputation has been affected. If you hire wrong people who have access to a lot of critical information, it could potentially cost you security damages, financial damages. There are a lot of KPMG studies which have shown the cost of fraud due to wrong people being hired in double digits, and this can take a while to recover, right? I've seen different kinds of problems in different parts of the world. In Asia, I mean, now with the crisis, a lot of people being out there with no jobs. The typical problem usually is in this kind of recession times. I've noticed in my work experience over the decades is they will pad up the resumes to get a job, right? So they might have been like out of job for 3 or 4 months in the middle, but they pad it up to make it look like they're continuously employed. They could fake a education check, a certificate. You could get any cert you want. Just tell me where you want. I'll get it for you for $3 to $5. So it's really that easy. And I'm not sure whether any of you have seen or faced or encountered people with such profiles where later on came up to be fake. And the other thing people also do is if they were refused visas, we have seen people faking their identity credentials even, whether it's an ID or passport. So there's a lot of areas people can fake. I mean, they always say fake it till you make it. There's a documentary in Singapore. It's called Talking Point Show, where I come in the last 10 minutes talking about how people can fake it easily, right, to get the right job. So technology has improved a lot for people to easily fake things. And I think the good news is we've also come up with a lot of innovative technologies to address these, right? Again, there's a lot of examples of wrongful hires, but it's important that you verify the identity, the credibility of the people. For some of your companies in very in sectors where there's a lot of regulations, like the finance sector, or government-related organizations or ministries, you will have a lot of compliance obligations as well, right? The other thing is a Gallup study has shown that background check people tend to stay with their company for a longer period of time, and it's more than 12 months, which means in today where in a lot of countries there's a millennial, we know, with all due respect to millennials, an exciting generation to work with and manage, but they also become very jumpy. I'm sure some of you HR professionals or business professionals might have seen resumes where 3 to 6 months in a job is so normal because the attention span is just so little, right? But thankfully, background checks, after a person goes through the exercise, I guess it has some intangible effect whereby people think that, okay, I think all the people around me are safe to work with, so there won't be any issues of people with dubious background and contributing to staff attrition problem. I can share with you an example where I was working for an English company. I was running the Asia business, and my chairman's okay, I'll give it away straight away. But during lunchtime, a lot of people had missing cash problems. They're missing, wallets, and people leave cash behind. They were losing the money, and then later on, after they installed CCTV cameras, a security police was also hired to walk around. And after much investigation, was found out there was our chairman's personal secretary. She was the one who was stealing cash. And upon further investigation, we found out that the previous company, a very, very large company, starting with H, I won't mention the name, a global company, they fired her for the same reason of stealing cash. So she was going through a bankruptcy, and she also had, it was going through a divorce as well. So there's a lot of issues. So if a detailed pre-employment check whereby we could have checked previous employer, that could have been done. We could have also done a social media check, and since she's a PA of the chairman, we could have done more detailed checks, right? Because she has access to financials, so a bankruptcy check or credit check, all this could have been done. So, and when this whole 6 months when the investigation was very slow was going on, a lot of people impacted. Some of the ladies did not want to work overtime because they didn't feel safe. People dropped off, so it definitely affected the morale of the company. So it is very important to ensure you know who you hire, right? And with the fact that you're going to save money because of the cost of fraud, obviously is high, so that you're going to save cost of attrition. So the employee hiring cost is going to be reduced as well. So we have very detailed calculator to show that a background check can actually yield to a returns on investment more than 100%. In fact, in some cases, we've shown even more than 300%. Right? So we definitely can get into the details if you want us to work it out with you. Right? And the problem with background check is you don't know what you don't know. So if you hire people and you think, okay, I do not know what I don't know, I'm happy with it. But when something hits you, the impact is big. And I think recently there's a lot of cases happening all around the world, even at governmental level, where people with fake credentials have been in key jobs. All that has happened, right? And the gig economy, again, there's a lot of hiring on gig economy, freelancers. Companies have said that I hired a guy, he put out there that he's got a lot of good reviews, but when I brought him in, he could not deliver the job he had put up on the freelancer platform. So that's why we also work with a lot of these guys, these freelancing platforms, to ensure that they are badged. So they were badged next to them stating that they've been vetted by Avvanz, right? So this is another case of neighbors in drug trafficking issues, and there were, I think you might have read about the Uber issues as well. Again, people with failed checks were on the job. There were people who didn't really have a valid driving license. It wasn't checked. There were people who were out there. So I could just give you examples one after the other for an hour and then scare you off and make you sleepless. So I'm not going to do that. But I think let me talk through a little bit more detail on what we can do. I mean, the good news is there are ways, there are methodologies to address this. And again, the other thing I want to also highlight is this is not a PI work. It's not a private investigator. Very big difference is if you're sort of suspecting that your spouse is having an affair and you're going to be checking on that person, that's private investigation, right? But that you're doing it without the knowledge of the spouse. So that is doing without the consent. Whereas background check is done with consent. So it's got a lot of data privacy, compliance to it. We make sure we get the employees or the candidates complete consent. When I say employee, means it's not just a pre-employment screening, it's also in-employment screening. So a lot of the times, companies who do background checks are new joiners. And then after that, they will also make sure they want to have everyone in the workforce to be calibrated to the same level of integrity and security. So they will have everyone checked, right? So of course, you don't do all checks on everyone because it's about, I would say, cost versus the benefit versus the risk. So obviously, the higher risk roles, you do more checks, more number of years, right? So I'm going to talk through that. So let me just stop share for a while and see if there's any questions. Okay, so no questions so far, so I must be very clear. So let me go on to sharing screen again. Okay, so, and then of course, the other things, for example, validating resumes, right? Interviewing costs can be very high and it will take a lot of time to vet through hundreds of resumes. This is where machine learning can come in to help you to vet through resumes very quickly, and chatbot, video bot can help you to do some of the basic interviewing. So by the time the individual comes on your Zoom call for an interview or comes into your office with a mask on him to his background to do his interview, it's already a good candidate because you've already done a lot of filtering, right? So that's where the screening part comes in. So cost of hiring obviously potentially can be reduced. And then to make sure that you tighten up the onboarding, to make sure they are productive very quickly, there are technologies for that. And of course, people are onboarded also stay on with the company for a longer period of time. So staff attrition drops for even onboarding. And of course, lastly, training and development, which I'm sure Dr. Vishnu and the team would have shared a lot. They can share a lot with you as well. So this is a space where, of course, the value we bring in is a lot of digital transformation stuff. So teaching you how to leverage AI, big data, blockchain, RPA. Some of the low-hanging fruits, I would say, are RPA and chatbots. If you go to Avvanz website, AVVANZ, you would see a chatbot comes up and helps you find the information you need. And then on our background screening platform, also we have chatbots to help you. Even internally within the company, we have chatbots to take on questions from the people in relation to any HR matters and all that. So technology is great, and I think this is amazing because a lot of us leveraged it and have seen success with it. And now we're sharing other companies how to do it as well. So that's a completely different topic. I think you need another 1 hour for that. So we will do that next time. So let me go on a little bit more into the screening, right? So these are the different kinds of checks you can do. So we have a tech-enabled platform where you can select and order checks, all these different types of checks across 150 plus countries. So you can very easily tick, 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 select the country, select the check, and then start doing it. So criminal check, of course, any police or court checks on this person, any civil cases against the person, right? That's that would be the civil litigation checks. And then you have stuff like global sanctions. So what is that is Interpol, right? Or money laundering, drug trafficking. Are you a politically exposed person? So, or health sanctions. So that kind of thing will come up with global sanction. Adverse media, like earlier in the part of the presentation, I talked about my own media coverage and all that. So if you were to put Kannan Chettiar in the media searches, if I've said anything negative, that will come up. So that's why I'm luckily media trained, so I know what to say. So you probably won't catch much about me. But social media, maybe. All right. So social media checks has become easily the most popular check right now. When we started the business, criminal check was the most popular, but now social media has taken over. Everyone does it now. Why? Because you really want to know the person, and traditional companies used to do assessments and all that. That has got some effect, but background checks fills up a remaining part of the gap. But social media checks is a more complete thing because you really want to know a person's behavior, and you can actually pick up a lot of derogatory indicators, areas of sexual stuff. Like we work with a lot of education sector where we've got a lot of educators soliciting sex with young children. Safeguarding child protection stuff. So that's a big topic. We've seen companies where, there's one particular example I can give you where they took about 6 months to find this guy. He's a really good CEO. They found him, and then background check, everything was good. Then he came to the social media check. There was one post this guy had, and this is a huge company, one of the biggest clients of Avvanz. He put up a post of a black dog, and the post at the bottom, he wrote down there, I only bark at black people. So that was a huge no-no for the MNC, which takes diversity and inclusion really seriously. And then they did a detailed level 2 check, and they found more and more derogatory indicators in areas of radicalism, a bit of radicalism as well, against certain religion. He had racist remarks, some level of intolerance at work, abusing female colleagues. So a lot of crap came out on the social media checks because we're able to use machine language again to scan through years and years of data, lots of whatever stuff you've posted, commented, shared, tagged in, to come up with a huge NLCs using data analytics to infer what kind of. We don't make judgments, but we just post out whatever you have. And some of the common ones are sexual stuff, vulgarity, big time, big problem. You've got a responsible job and you're going to be vulgar, bitching about, sorry for the choice of the word, about your management, about the company. A lot of companies want to do social listening. They want to know what the employees are talking about, their brand in the social media. I'm sure you have heard of this case whereby I think it was a large logistics company. So this lady, before getting on the plane, it's a long trip, just going on a business class trip, flights, and then before she was going to Africa, and she made a very, very racist remark on the Facebook, and then she posted it. Many hours later, she landed. She was told, "Come back because we have fired you," because the post became so viral that the many hours of flight she was. You can Google this. This story is still out there. And then when she landed, she lost her job. So be really, really careful. Be social media responsible. And there's a reason why I'm spending so much time on it, because this is a check which has costed a lot of people their jobs. And companies also do this check on existing employees every 6 months. So those profiles which are sort of easy to clean, like maybe Twitter posts, like Trump style kind of posts, you want to, it'd be easy to take down. But those which are irreparable, really beyond redemption types, right? Those are the ones they need a conversation. So a lot of our clients, after they do that, after they do the social media checks, they have conversations with the employees. They also educate their employees to be social media responsible, because especially if you're an organization where you interface a lot with external stakeholders like your customers and partners, people do go to the Google or social media to check who you are, what you are, right? So very important check, I would say. Sex offenders is mainly for the US. OFAC is against for the finance sector. Passport, ID verification, driving records, address checks. We recently introduced drug checks as well. COVID test not yet. And then, of course, there are finance checks, especially for those with financial accountability, not just finance professionals, but it could be P&L management guys also, right? So credit check, bankruptcy, and then financial regulatory is like your monetary authority in your country. If they have any sanctions against them, maybe they have bad trading practices, all that will come up. Conflicting directorship is if the person has any conflicting directorships in companies which are, in direct competition to you, or sensitive companies. Maybe a non-compete clause that came out, started this company, so that throws up a lot of can of worms. So all that will come up on these database checks. And I call this a security firewall because, again, I said I'm a tech guy, so I like to say everything in a tech way. So I would like to imagine a guy walking through a security firewall, and then she passes all these checks, and then he or she goes through the security firewall, and then lands on the integrity firewall, right? So the integrity firewall is all the other checks which you might be familiar with already. You might already be doing a lot of employment checks with HR, employment performance with supervisor, but it's also very important to check who you're doing it with. In my world, character reference checks are completely pointless. So if I'm joining your company and I've given my friend as a reference, tomorrow I'm going to call my friend. Today I'll make sure I buy him a barrel of beer and completely make him drown and happy. So tomorrow when you call him, he'll say Kannan is the best in the world, right? So character reference checks are very subjective, very skewed, very biased. They are not a true representation, right? Even HR, a lot of the times when the candidates submit HR data, we have found out that they give the friends' names as HR, girlfriend's names as supervisor, and all that. So it's very important that when you do these checks, whether you use Avvanz or do it yourself, it's a good idea to authenticate the credentials of this HR or the identity of this HR and supervisors first, and then you do the checks, right? Then if the highest education, recently a lot of degree mills have come up, right? So you need to also validate whether this is a degree mill, is it an accredited university or institution before you do the check. So of course, education and employment take a bit longer, especially this year. Some of the universities out of Europe, we found that turnaround time went beyond a bit 12 days because a lot of the times when they close down, they don't even have a skeleton force to take calls. So that was a bit challenging for us. But the good thing is by end of the year, we are going to launch a blockchain. I will tell you more when we launch. So keep a lookout. And we'll probably be the first platform in the world. I will say that in the world because no background screening company has really established a complete end-to-end blockchain. And ours is not vaporware, it's not slides, it's an actual working product, but I need to get it better on the UI. And once it's out there, you will be able to verify education checks in seconds, or maybe if not microseconds, right? So that's an exciting innovation in our pipeline. All right. So far doesn't look like any questions. That's good. So you'll be thinking, okay, I can do these background checks myself. Why would I want to outsource somebody like Avvanz, right? So it's important to note that it's a complex project, right? Why? Because if you're individual, the candidate is, let's say, worked in Caribbean, studied in the US, lived out in China, and let's say you're doing the last 10 years of criminal check, there's a lot of countries we're talking about. So it might be very difficult for you to know how to do the checks in different countries. The data privacies act very differently. You can't just pick up the phone and do it. And a lot of the times you need subscription to databases, and it might not be a good value for money to do that because a lot of these databases have minimum subscription. We might run in thousands of dollars. So that's where we come in, and we have like 150 countries worth of data points. So we'll be able to, we have all the subscriptions in place, like Global Sanction Check itself, we have thousands of databases we subscribe to. So it gives you a very good coverage, right? And the other thing is, background check is a very burdensome, it's a lot of paperwork, and it can be cumbersome and, very prone to mistakes if you do very manually. So we use technology. When I show you the platform, you'll see. And I'm going to save a bit of time for that. That's the more fun part. So you guys, your HR or your business should be hiring focused on very strategic work, right? About onboarding, developing people, engaging people, making them perform, getting a business, partnering a business, get to the next level, transforming a business, integrating a business with the right processes, all that, right? So again, returns on investment, it pays for itself, it more than pays for itself, right? So that's why it's key to do. It's a good practice to outsource because there's a way to do it, and we will do it. And whoever you hire to do this job for you, whichever background screening company, make sure they're very easy way to onboard, and make sure they don't charge you for onboarding. There should not be any minimum setup fee. There should not be any commitment fee. It should be something like Amazon. Go in, order a book, pay for it, get out, right? It should be that easy. So ordering should be really easy. Complex cases should be easy to handle. Cost, of course, must be manageable. And very importantly, the physical admin security, the cyber security, how they manage the data protection, how they manage all the personal data. Are they doing it in a compliant way? So we serve lots of industries, including very regulated industries like the government and the finance. So obviously, we have processes in place. Even our platform is housed in AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is where a lot of banks put the data. So there are a lot of security frameworks associated with it. So yeah, so this is a platform, but I'm not going to bore you with this flow chart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the platform straight away. But while I'm doing that, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. All right, so let me share screen here. So that's our platform, and let me just go into the screen global. So this is the platform where HR will be going into order, or if you are even a small medium enterprise, you can do this yourself. It's really easy. And once you go in, again, you can set up the architecture in any way, right? You can have multiple branches in your company. Within each branch or within each country, you've got a lot of sub-companies, affiliate companies, M&A companies. You can set it up and you can control the access of which HR sees what, right? And then creating a case is also really easy. It will take you less than a minute for a case. We can create packages. We can call this, let's say you're ExxonMobil. We can call this ExxonMobil management package, ExxonMobil junior package, or blue collar workers, whatever it is, right? So, and then what happens is when you select the package, checks will get automatically populated so that you don't have to do this on a la carte, or you can also do it on a la carte basis. Put in the candidate details. This system has got a lot of awards for us because, again, I used to come from a global background screening company where I've done it in a very manual way. And it was frustrating for me why this has to be so manual. And I'm a big fan of Amazon, which is why probably you see a very similar A to Z kind of concept here. But again, Avvanz means in Maltese language, it means advancing forward. And the double ticks means in line with the vision, in line with the strategy. So there's a meaning to it, right? So it's not just because copying the idea of Amazon, but I think the color schemes are probably inspired by Amazon because I'm a huge fan of the company. I always use them as a case study in a lot of my leadership classes. So this platform tells you exactly how the check is done in each country. So you know exactly what you're ordering for. So let's say criminal check. Let's say I have an individual who has lived in 3 different countries in the last 10 years, right? So let's say he has lived in Guyana, right? Beautiful Guyana, never been, but I want to get there, right? And the pricing, you see all the undiscounted pricing for entry-level pricing. Most of the companies get discounts from us. And then you could have also lived in United Kingdom, right? And when you come to United Kingdom, there are many options, basic DBS, enhanced DBS, and all that. And the person could have also lived in the US, so you could add a plus and add US as well. US, again, there's a lot of options, different types of checks, so you can select whichever option you want. So a lot of the times when you work with if you're already working with a background screening company, I'm sure you're having this experience of, hey guys, how do you do background criminal check in Venezuela? I don't know how do you guys do it. Can you tell me? And then the person serving you will probably check internally, get back to you a week later. This is not going to cut it because you need to hire the person fast before you lose the candidate, right? Although you could have made a conditional offer first, right? So it's very important to have all the information readily available, readily viewable and readable, right? So everything is there, and then once you selected the checks and the countries and all that, you can hit the submit button, and then the candidate will get a welcome email, and the candidate will be able to get into the platform and start filling up the email. So if you are a small, medium enterprise company who do not want to invest in an applicant tracking system or a human resource management system, This is a free system for you. So we don't charge for the platform at all. Whatever prices you saw there for the check, that's what you get, right? And that's what you get through our partner here as well. And here you'll be, it's also very highly automated in the sense that the system intelligently reads information. So for example, this person has lived in Australia and has also lived in Spain and Spain, right? So documents specific to Australia and Spain will automatically come up, like the Australia criminal form. It could be a Spain form. So even the Caribbean countries, the ARCOM countries, any specific country-specific documentation will automatically pop up. So you can imagine a lot of information computed here, collected here, all automated. So you don't have to do a lot of chasing on emails anymore. So it completely takes away the workload of the HR. Your job was the 35 seconds of creating a case just now. Even if we do not know the countries where they've lived in, doesn't matter, right? You can leave it and it will just put in your default home country and then let the candidate be the one entering the countries here, the candidate form, right? You can also enter the data on behalf of the candidate here, of course. And then in employment details, for example, the workflows would handle things like, is this your current company? Yes. Can we communicate with them? Yes, great. If it's a no, then our team will not call on them, right? They will only call on them after they've joined your company and you've told us he has joined or she has joined. So this will eradicate problems whereby you are calling a current employee who's not left the company yet, and now everybody knows that you're leaving, right? So these kind of very uncomfortable circumstances, I used to face all that in my previous job, and what I've done is we've automated all that into actual functionality. So I'm just showing you 5% of the features, but I think it gives you a good view of what's going on. And after the candidate is submitted, it will go to the HR again, or the case requester again, who gets to see all the checks like a cut, right? I'm happy with it. Or you know what, some of the checks expensive, I don't need so many, I'll remove it. Or maybe a guy is like jumping. I've seen an extreme profile of an educator who has probably had the most colorful life, better than mine, I think. He has moved around 6 countries in 10 years, and the 6 countries are not within the same continent. It's like really all over the world, continent to continent. And the interesting thing is his 3 children and his wife followed him everywhere. So I think the amount of exposure the kids must have had must be amazing, right? But I don't know how he took care of the education part of it, but maybe it's international school, so he must have just had some level of continuity. And his background check profile came up to be like $1,000 over, and then the company didn't go ahead with the case, not because of the fact it was $1,000 over. I mean, usually it's about a couple of hundred maximum, right? Because they were not because of the 1,000 plus, but they were concerned that this guy is very jumpy. So why is he jumping around continent to continent? Is he committed any offenses? So that the deeper you go, there might be more devil in the details, right? So that's why they didn't go ahead with the profile. So sometimes a very global experience might not be that great after all, right? So after you've done that and you check it out, then what happens is the order goes to a ready for processing tab. This is when the team picks it up and they start doing. If you don't have the patience to wait for the full turnaround time, you can always monitor the report real time. So this is how the background check report looks like. And then some of the checks earlier, if it's completed, it will show it's clear. And all the documents uploaded by the candidate, by the way, this is fictitious data, and by the verifier will all be in this document. And you can easily print it, scan it, download it, whatever you want to do, right? And then you can even get on-demand reports if you want to show to your management, or by branch, what are the reports on each person, what is the color, is it a red, or is it an amber, or is it a green? All that will come out in this report. And of course, you also have dashboards to help you through as well. So a lot of features, very simple. Maybe the very first time you need to place a check, our team and the partners can help you with it. But after that, you will find it's an easy sale. Again, if you've ordered a book on Amazon, you can do this, right? In fact, I think Amazon sometimes a little bit difficult because they have a lot of pop-up windows, and I go crazy because I'm 49 years old. I don't like too many pop-ups. I like to keep it simple. And of course, we are even simplifying it more. By end of the year, you will see more features are going to come up. So this is a product which I would say is always a work in progress because we continuously innovate and enhance, right? So there's a chatbot here. Nina can help you through step by step as well. Or we are in the welcome email, you will have a video to help you through. There's a user guide. So plenty of help, but if you still want a hot body to help you through, of course, the team can help you. So yeah, so that is the gist of the platform, and I'm not going to bore you with every single functionality. But let's also very quickly touch on what checks do I do, Kannan? Okay, now you've told us there's so many checks. What do I do? What do I do on who? So again, if it's a high risk role like a management or a finance or a lawyer or risk and compliance or a cyber security, obviously do more checks. Lesser risky roles, obviously you do fewer checks, right? So it doesn't mean high level hierarchy means more checks, right? And again, for non-finance is fewer, finance sector is even more. But if it's yours like a mining sector, oil and industry, oil and gas industry, probably you would do non-finance metrics. But again, this is just a recommendation. We can always sit down with you, weigh out your cost, budget, the benefits you're going to get, and the risk level you are willing to, your risk threshold. And based on that, then we will come out again and help you with the right package of checks. Right. The last part I want to quickly touch on is due diligence. So we also do due diligence on companies. So before you open up credit terms to a client, a potential client, or a JV, or your subcontractors you want to work with, they do the KYC a lot in the fintech world. Channel partners, you can do a lot of different types of checks as well. So anti-money laundering, KYC, fraud, embezzlement, irregularities. If they are the FCPA Act, do they have any inhuman practices, any liabilities we should be concerned about, political sensitivities, terrorism links, counterfeiting, conflicts of interest. So all that can be done on a company, right? So we can do that as well. So yeah, so that's all I've got. Onboarding, developing, I'm not touching in this webinar because it's a big animal by itself. But again, I would like to take any questions from anyone in terms of background checks, due diligence. I'll be glad to take questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Kannan. And Daniel, I think you've been gathering some questions. Would you like to go ahead and pose those to Kannan? You should be able to get unmuted. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Durga. Thank you very much, Kannan, for the presentation. Very informative. I have been accumulating a few questions. In terms of the background check, how do the clients make contact with you? For example, if I'm a company and I'm doing recruiting and I have a candidate I would like to have screen and background check, how would I communicate that to you, or how do I make that initial contact?
Yeah, so typically they would contact us on the website itself. Of course, with you, you guys, they can go through and then they can reach out to us as well. We have a lot of partners around the globe. Once they reach out to us, a lot of them like to even, let me just show this to you. And I think it's a good chance to showcase a bit of simple technologies that you can easily implement as well, right? They would also get to the chatbot and leave some questions. So it's specific questions on background checks, right? So for example, okay, let me just give you, let me just play around with Sheeny a little bit, right? And then, yes, I want to know more, a little bit more. And then let's say I want to know more about background checks. And she would give me different things, like maybe introductory information, different types of background checks you need to know, how to go to the platform straight away, and of course other stuff as well. If I'm done with it, then of course she can go into this phase, and then she'll land up at the landing page, and they can leave questions with us. So that's one. That's more reachability or accessibility. The other thing is, a lot of companies, when we do webinars like this, thought leadership articles, they reach out to us and they want to know more about it, because a lot of them do not know that such a service even exists, right? But then they would say, okay, great to know. But then when something hits them, a lot of them do it reactively after something really happens. And you know what? 9 out of 10 companies, something would have happened. But again, like what I said before, you don't know what you don't know. But when it really hits you, then they quickly scramble and they say, you know what, we need to quickly implement. Like today, we had a client, a healthcare client, and they said when something really serious happened, and we need to make sure everyone's background checked very quickly, very thoroughly. And they wanted a proposal overnight. They wanted to come up with the invitation to code by tomorrow, and they're expediting things. But if you've already had this as part of your policy, in your recruitment policy, then it's a lot easier, right? So your background checks becomes a part of your, it's a safeguarding policy of your employees as well. And we've worked with companies to help them craft the policy framework on how to, and what is a handbook how to manage this. Even existing employees, let's say a guy worked in a company for 20 over years and suddenly Avvanz comes with a picture and says that we're going to background check everyone. He'd be like, what, you don't trust me after all these years? So we help them with the communication as well. So we tell them that, oh, we are background checking the new one. So now we need to make sure everybody is fairly checked, everyone's equitably checked. So that's what you need to go through as well. And we've even caught cases whereby there was a recent case whereby this is a manufacturing company. The guy was in head of procurement, I think, working for there for more than 23 years. And then they found out that his degree was fake 23 years ago. But you know what? If this was a bank or a government, immediate fire, right? But in this case, he's a good employee, has contributed a lot to the company. So they sort of said, you know what, let it go. But but the problem is, imagine the discomfort he's going to face. So they all know that this guy had integrity issue before. So now they might dig all the last 20 years. What else did he do? So it does open up things. So if you do it, you have to do it carefully. If in the compliance within your company is not very, it's more tolerant, it's a better tolerance level, then you don't have to fire such people, right? So for different companies, they have different level of acceptance in terms of discrepancies. So I know it's a longer answer to a short question.
Thank you for the information. It's been very useful. Another question I received, it is, how long before you receive your results? What is the turnaround time? So you have a candidate, you would have communicated those details via the website or through the local office, and we're waiting for the results. What sort of timeline are we looking at?
Yeah. So like what I showed earlier, again, I'll share screen a bit easier. I'm a visual learner. So, so the database checks like these, obviously, in about less than 5 business days in most countries, except some countries take a bit longer. So criminal-related, finance, social media, identity, which are faster. But of course, education, employment will take maybe an extra 5 to 7 days, right? So in total, by 15 business days, you should have most of the information. But again, like what I showed you on the Spring Over platform just now, the real-time report feature lets you have some information earlier. So for example, if you need to process a visa, and you need a criminal check to be done, you can process it first while other checks come in later, right? So that's the beauty of having a real-time report feature.
If I understand, as the checks are completed, as the different checks are completed, you will receive that report as it's available.
Oh, you will not get triggers for each, otherwise you're going to get a lot of emails, and I don't see anyone likes that too many inbox getting inflated. But when the full report is completed, you'll get a trigger. But in the meantime, if you're impatient or you need to check out the progress, you can always click on the platform and see which of the checks have come out. And some clients do have certain checks which are more urgent, right? So maybe they want to issue a security pass, and criminal checks are more important. Maybe the education employment can come in later. That is not critical for issuing the pass for them to come into the company SS card. So in such cases, a real-time report would be useful. So you can go in anytime and monitor.
Great, very useful information again. Now, with background checks, one thing that comes up is the level of accuracy. Do you guys attain a certain level of accuracy, or what sorts of completeness are we looking at in terms of the report that we would receive?
Yeah, very important question. Thanks for that. So here, it's important to understand that we are getting information from the sources. So we are not making our own data, right? So if there's a court check, let's say in Latin America, let's say in Brazil, there's a criminal check to be done. And then when we go out there to the source, we're getting it actually from the source. So our accuracy is limited to the extent of what the source is giving us. So if the source is corrupted or it's got bad data, then that's too bad, right? But again, that's why you don't do 1 or 2 checks. The more checks you do, you have a better assessment of a candidate. But again, checks are not 100%. Then you'll be thinking, if I were an inaccurate check, and if I bring in a wrong person, what's going to happen? So what kind of protection Avvanz is going to give? Which is where your professional indemnity insurance comes in, right? So we have a multi-million-dollar coverage, and so we insure you, your client, your candidates against any kind of breach of data, right? Or any kind of breach of service. So maybe you even hired someone, or maybe you didn't hire someone because of a wrong criminal report saying that he had a criminal check. And if that guy sues you, that's risky, which is where we come in and recover the cost. So thankfully, 4.5 years of record, touch wood, God grace, we have never had any issues, which is why, but we still continue paying the premium because it's a very important indemnity to have. Right?
Great. Thank you very much, Kannan. That wraps it up for the questions that I got through the chat box. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for capturing that. And Kannan, thank you very much for participating today and making sure that we really get a lot more clarity around what background screening is all about, what the due diligence services are all about, so that persons can really be able to utilize the service. As more questions come in, we'll be sure to either answer them with the info we already have, or we will be providing those to you for their clarity. Is there anything else you would like to share before we close off the call today?
I mean, I've shared a lot about best practices. Some of them are thinking that it's not going to happen to me syndrome, right? It's like the COVID, like the Trump syndrome. I'm never going to get it, but then he got it kind of thing. Bad example, but I think it proves the point. So you never know when it hits you. A lot of the time, again, I was studying for the third time, like a broken record. You don't know what you don't know. But then when you get to know, it's too late. So which is why I think it's important risk management. It's a very small price. I mean, you're not talking about thousands of dollars in a background check. If I were to draw a normal bell curve, I think a bulk of the checks fall in the category of maybe $100, right? The cheapest check is like $10. So it's a very small cost of your entire recruitment, because getting a wrong hire is eventually going to cost you a lot more, which is why we've shown you that the ROI calculator, right? It can be more than 300% even. So cost of frauds, cost of wrong person, cost of damages in terms of reputation, finance, all these are very hard to recover. And there's lots of case studies. I've given you a lot of examples. So this is something you should not ignore. It should be a part of your employee policy. I wish I knew about this years ago when I was managing people and businesses in my previous companies, where we had a lot of these issues. At the time, didn't even know such a service existed, which is why I got into this business. Because you can, when I earlier shared with you my profile, you saw that I think a major part of my profile, my background was working in IT and tech companies. So you can imagine why, despite that, why did I start a company, not in a tech company, but in something which is, I only spent a very few years, because I think it's really important. But of course, I brought all the technology into it. I've automated a lot of the workflows. But I think the thing here is it is critical to make sure you know who you hire exactly. So I wish you all the best, and I think more importantly, stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much, Kannan. And I think we did get a question about the sharing of the presentation. It is recorded, and we will be sharing the presentation with participants. We have a YouTube link, so that would make it easy for anyone who has viewed this. If you need to be able to share this with the rest of the executives in your organization, or to make sure that people are well aware of what's available, we'll be providing that information. And most of you should also be able to see our screen. I'm going to ask Daniel to make sure that he puts the contact information in the chat box, so everyone knows how to be able to get to us. But Kannan, thank you very much for taking the time out. We look forward to really developing this collaboration so that we can really ensure that companies in our country can really benefit from having peace of mind, because I think that's really at the core what we will be providing to the market and to people who really can benefit from these services. Thank you very much. Thanks to the team at Avvanz, and have a good evening. I know we are on the opposite side of the world, so have a good night.
Same to you. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care.